Okay, Ted Carlson,
Here.
Terrence Kelly, David Nesbitt,
Here.
Keith Silver,
Here.
Steve Strom,
Here.
Dee Ennis,
Here.
Linda Richardson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
And since I don't have an agenda, we're going to step right on into this. And as you,
This is the agenda, so if we could approve it real quick.
as you, okay. Can we have a motion to accept the agenda?
The 8A, or where are we at?
Yes. It's been moved. Do we have a second to accept the agenda?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the agenda. The agenda is approved.
Do we have a copy here of what was passed around?
Yes,
The bullet
after
points.
8A,
The bullet points that
the
we were
third
trying to
page.
put together.
It's right here, and it's right here.
Third page, under
Keep
executive
going back.
summary.
You went, I think
8A.
you went too far.
Right after 8.
Yeah, right after 8A.
Third page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
One more.
One more. Okay.
One. There you go.
Okay.
So if you would, maybe just in the interest of time, and since Steve's on the phone, we have to be careful with his interest. He said it's very difficult to determine who's speaking and what's going on.
Yes.
So go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead with what?
Well, your suggestions as to how to strengthen this, as you were concerned yesterday, or do we want to, as we go bullet by bullet, these 5 bullet points?
Okay. First of all, there seems to be this is David. Seems to be an impression that I called this meeting, and I hope that that's not how it happened. My understanding is that individually, these emails were sent to us individually. I don't know what other people said. My concern was that this wasn't necessarily representative of our board. Before we send this is a bullet point, that before we send this to the assembly, I wanted to make sure that we agreed that these bullet points represented what we came to as a conclusion in the last meeting. Because the way I felt was that when we walked away from the meeting last time, I had a pretty good understanding, I thought, of what people's positions were. Terry drafted that treatise that did not seem to jive with my understanding of our board's position. My concern is that without having met again to try to bring people back into a consensus, that we would be hastily sending something out to the assembly without actually having an agreed upon bullet point list of things to send out. I can say that what I agree with is the substance of what is being said here. I'm not opposed to it. I would recommend that we're a little more specific with it. But it's not that I'm kind of feeling like I've caused this kind of juggernaut, and I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to make sure that we were on the same page when this got sent out, because I am extremely wary of written materials leaving this board without confirming that we are all on the same page. And I felt like we kind of went this way. I'm using my arms to widen from where we were, and I wanted to make sure that when we met, my arms are now narrowing so that we are on the same page, especially because I know Steve and Terry were not on the same, they didn't agree. And before we send this thing out, I want to make sure that this is the consensus of the board. That was my major concern, and that was why I was uncomfortable with this going out as it is. I don't have any, and I think that in the shower this morning when I was thinking about this, that maybe I would recommend that this be, because it is pretty vague to me. I would like to narrow the terms a little bit, but I don't necessarily disagree with what its intent is. So that's my thought, and I'm happy to entertain other thoughts or other directions to go from here.
Well, this is Steve on the phone. I'm in agreement with the current iteration of our advisory opinion. And if we want to clarify that, I'm okay with. But I don't think we need all the additional information that was behind Terry's original proposal. So I think, my view, and I think I said this at the last meeting, was statute allows for them to do what they're asking to do. And I thought that we had included in our advice some recommendations on not being too general in their application of that. But maybe I misread it. Or maybe we need to be more specific. But I think the bottom line is statute allows for what they're asking us to provide advice on, and I don't think that I don't think we can address the ethical standards of the statute.
The state statute, right, Steve?
Yeah, right.
No.
I mean, that's in place. I don't think what they're doing is contrary to that. It is contrary to our code somewhat. But then again, they are a body that's allowed to modify the code, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, in fact, they are the body to do that.
So I think what they're asking to do is to modify the code. Now, we might have personal opinions on that, but I don't think there's anything ethically wrong with that.
Okay, Steve, were you done? I was going to ask Ted to weigh in, then I was going to say some stuff, and maybe we can go point by point.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ted.
Okay, Steve, have you read this? The one that was fixing to go, that come out.
The one that Lisa sent out to each of us individually.
Well, I didn't get it. I don't.
Oh. Well, I
Okay,
is that,
you got this one. Okay.
yeah, is that the attachment you sent, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a one-page document, right?
It's basically a one-page, actually
Yeah.
2-page.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Do you find anything that jumps out at you that you don't want to see in this?
Hold that thought. Let me get it pulled up on my computer.
And Ted, do you know the genesis of this document?
Yeah.
Okay.
Please
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it
remind me.
is Terry's executive summary less a few of his philosophical terms.
Right.
Yeah.
And
then
one addition, right?
And the addition of Steve's one comment, which is
Oh.
number 3, the third bullet point.
Any amendment to the code?
Yeah. So the rest of it was basically Terry's, and I may have tweaked a word here or there in terms of making it simpler.
Right.
And then the other one was Steve's.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
But
Okay. That's good.
it's
I wanted-
4 Terry, 1 Steve.
Okay.
okay. Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, I've got it open.
All right, I'm in support of this that's written now, because if that other goes through, I feel very strongly that the assembly will fall under the state statute, because it says the state statutes, if a municipality fails to adopt a conflict of interest, the provisions of this section are automatically applicable and binding upon the municipality. So if they opt themselves out of our ethics, like they're doing in the one that's proposed, they have to fall under this. And so I say I'm in support of this, the way it's written.
I want to make sure I understand. What you're saying is that, Steve, this is David.
Yeah.
You can probably tell by our voices, but
Yeah, I can actually. Just raise your hand so I can see it though.
I want to make sure I understand your point. That is that you agree with this because
If-
in the event that they give themselves too lax of a code, that they will still be subject to the state as a default.
They will automatically,
No matter what happens,
no matter
they
what happens.
still will be subject to the state.
State, but who takes it out of our
Right.
hands? And then who does it for the state?
Right.
We don't know.
Right. Right.
So,
Okay.
Do you have any?
I'm not sure I fully understand that, Ted, but because I think what the state statute is saying is municipalities, you have to have a municipal code along these lines. It doesn't say it has to be that. In other words, we can have some modification, but it has to address these points.
yeah, but see, and that's
Uh-huh.
true. It says that we have to have a conflict of interest for our
Exactly.
right. The way this is written, it specifically says that this conflict of interest pertains to all governing bodies except the assembly.
Okay, so Ted, can I
Sure.
clarify? When you say this, the proposed rewrite,
Yes.
The
okay,
proposed
what
rewrite.
you're really taking objection to because you think
Yes.
the one broad statement, I think was
Right, our
subparagraph
code
B,
is fine now.
subsumes the
Right.
whole.
Yes,
Which is our point number 2. The current proposal, as written, goes too far in exempting the assembly from conflict of interest provisions.
The second bullet point.
yeah.
Right.
Right. So maybe that's a place where David suggested that we provide more specificity or
Yes.
clarification.
That's exactly right, Steve.
Yeah.
That was what occurred to me very early this morning, and that is that that when we say "as written" goes too far, I know we're going to go through these one by one, but that's exactly what came to
Yeah.
mind. That as
So
written
I
goes
mean, we
too
can
far.
maybe clarify that, but I still think we can. Our advisory opinion shouldn't exceed 2 pages.
No.
And I think we capture our consensus in what's written, and maybe we just add some clarification to it.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree because what we've been asked to do, simply within the time frame that we have, simply does not provide us enough time to come up with a lengthy written explanation. Also, I don't think that that's what they want from us anyway, because they're going to have to, if they're going to do something here, they're going to have to provide the language. They're going to have to
Right.
change it. This is not our job.
No.
And I agree that the more I thought about this, the more I agreed that this bullet point summary is actually probably not only what they want, but what we should do anyway. Because originally I thought, oh, we should draft something more concrete, but I think that you're right. I think this is the form that it should take now that I've thought about it more, which essentially is a page and a paragraph, which I think is right.
Okay. Ted, do you have anything else?
But just
Yeah.
yield to David.
Oh.
Tell us what we want,
Well,
what we should put in there.
Well, my suggestion, I tell you what, do we want to go through this paragraph by paragraph and just kind of tweak it just a little bit here and there? I just have a couple of suggestions.
Right,
Other than
because
that-
just keep in mind, he has to leave at 3 o'clock, so
3
we
o'clock.
really need to...
At 3 o'clock?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, excuse
4
me.
o'clock.
I'm looking at the clock wrong. So we've
Yeah,
got
4 o'clock.
40
I got it.
minutes.
I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
So we
I
have
think
to stay
that's
on
plenty of
task.
time. I'm in agreement with David.
Okay.
So the first paragraph under the first executive summary, the stuff.
Actually, I was going to bump it up. Can I just make a suggestion and see what you guys think? The Board of Ethics has been asked to review and provide summary comment. That would be my thought. Because we're not providing a lengthy description of what we're
So
doing
you're
here.
saying summary comment?
All I'm doing is I want to make sure that they know that what we are providing is what we think their expectation of us is, which is not to provide a lengthy opinion, but to provide a summary. That's all.
Yeah. So maybe actually I would take executive summary off because that kind of indicates that there was some larger
That's
document that we're summarizing. And there really isn't. This is just our advisory opinion. So
Are you
At
writing
least-
down the concrete things you're saying?
I am. Does one of us want to write down?
I'll do it.
Okay. So my thought is, and I'm open to suggestions, and this is just a thought, but the concept is, like Steve said, eliminate executive summary, which is in bold underneath Board of Ethics consideration, and put in Board of Ethics has been asked to review and provide summary comment. I just made that up, but provide summary comment on the proposed legislation. Because we're commenting, but we're commenting in a way that we don't typically comment. I guess typically we provide an opinion, but I don't know that we've gone into the semantics of the two different things greatly. Does that make sense, Steve?
Yep.
Okay. And then I agree, eliminate executive summary, the bold heading, because we don't have a second heading. There's no reason to have a first heading.
Can I turn
Yeah.
Lisa, this has request for advisory opinion 2013-2. Is that what this was? It came initially under the form of a
Oh, that's a good question.
advisory opinion?
It was a memo, and I it's here in the front of your book. It was a memo from Adam. Remember, we had to write it up.
Right.
So
And so it was actually given a number.
yes.
Okay. Okay, well then.
Do you have something to add? I assume you'll just jump in.
The only comment I have,
Can you hear it, Steve?
I have is that the
Yeah.
third bullet that says any amendments to the Code of Ethics should address the Alaska State statute. I think that should be the first thing you say. So that's just a matter of structuring the order of the bullets. I think that should be the very first bullet.
That's a good point. Because really,
It kind of sets the groundwork.
well, in our code, is it not built off of the requirement in the statute?
Yes,
So
in my opinion. Based
yeah, that kind of makes sense. And then the other ones kind of
Sure.
address our code in relation to the statute.
Very good suggestion, Linda. How about?
Do we agree with the? I'm sorry, Keith.
Yes.
I was asking, do we agree with the next
Okay,
paragraph, the
paragraph,
unusual
yeah.
case?
The unusual case in which every member of the assembly faces a conflict of interest, very special challenges.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with that.
Then the next paragraph, which is now the second bullet.
Would be so. The first bullet would be any amendment to the code. Do you have any? I don't have any suggestions to change that. Steve, did you write that?
I think Dee might have been creative with what I put in, but
No, I'm not sure the difference is, but this is wordy, and I haven't really given it time to make it better.
Any amendment to the Code of Ethics should address the Alaska State statute allowing governing bodies to be exempt from the conflict of interest restrictions placed on other bodies with an understanding. Okay, so we got
It's a long sentence.
we should put a period in there somewhere, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
so we can maybe take the word state out because when we say Alaska statute, isn't that
Yeah, that's true.
state?
That's wordy then, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And allowing governing bodies to
Well, you could even take it such as the assembly, I guess.
right.
To be exempt from.
We might want to leave that in just to clarify their relationship to the statute, although they should probably know that.
Be exempt from the conflict of interest restriction.
Well, so far, the only change I've written down here, maybe I'm wrong, is any amendment to the Code of Ethics should address the state statute allowing governing bodies such as the Assembly.
The Alaska statute.
The Alaska
Do we want to take out, I thought we pulled out you mean so.
Take
to
out
leave it-
state.
Stay out
I
state.
take out state.
allowing governing such
Okay.
as there's too many to be's. Let's see.
Yeah.
See, allowing governing bodies such as them to be exempt. Maybe what we could do is, okay, this is free thinking. Maybe the sentence should start, the Code of Ethics should address the Alaska statute, and then take any amendment to be limited to those actions. Right? Because that's what we're saying. We want the amendment to be limited.
How about, since well, the reason we're putting it front and center is, one, the Code of Ethics,
Should-
conflict of interest derives or is derived by or comes from the Alaska State statute. That's thought one. That there's this Alaska State statute out there talking about home rule and saying we have to have a Code of Ethics. So that's idea one, and that should be our premise for the first bullet. Idea two in that same paragraph is, because the Code of Ethics comes from that state statute, it should specifically reference it, or not reference it, but incorporate by reference, but it should address it. So that's idea two. Genesis, reference. The third idea
It
is,
should be limited to those actions where most or all assembly members face similar conflict.
That's
I can
the
see your
important point. So
I can see
however
your
we want to make that point. I mean, out of the whole bullet, that's the most important point.
That makes sense to me. Did you get that?
No.
Sorry.
So, Linda, if you could rephrase what you said, that was actually very good.
I
the
thought that was
reason
very
we want
helpful.
this bullet front and center is, one, the Code of Ethics
We're breaking it
is
to pieces.
triggered or comes out of the state statute.
Derived?
Well,
I'm not sure, again,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's true.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, but,
how about eliminating the first sentence and going straight to the second sentence that you had, which essentially is that there is a state statute that has this language in it. The municipal code, whereas we're giving our recommendation, should be limited to those, should be amended to allow for specific circumstances. The third sentence, be limited to those actions where. Are we
I
gonna-
guess, because the state statute sort of sets a model minimum, kind of. And so that becomes sort of like the minimum parameters in which a city code of ethics has to operate.
I think that's fair.
It's a baseline.
Yeah.
So we could state that. The state statute provides a baseline or a minimum
Standard.
standard.
Okay. I guess, Steve, you're the one that wanted to throw this bullet point in, and I'm wondering what's the
I think we might. I
of
mean, the way
importance
it's
of it.
written, I think it's pretty good. I think the important point is they're asking us to comment on a proposed rewrite or a proposed amendment. So whatever we say, we need to make sure that we address that amendment, and maybe by default address any subsequent amendments that they might consider. And so that's why the last part is in there, to limit similar actions where most of the assembly members, it should be limited to that. I mean, that's where we were trying to put the limit on any kind of an amendment to the code in relation to conflict of interest. So, I mean, it's pretty clear. I mean, any amendment to the Code of Ethics should address the Alaska statute allowing governing bodies, such as the Assembly, to be exempt from the conflict of interest restrictions placed on other such bodies, with an understanding that any such exception granted to the Assembly be limited to those actions where most or all Assembly members face a similar conflict.
I have a proposal.
Okay,
Go ahead. And I'm simply, Steve, all I'm doing is breaking this into two sentences.
Okay.
So it would be, because any amendment to is really referring to the last section, the last phrase, be limited
Yeah.
to those actions.
Right.
So my proposal is to start the sentence with, the Code of Ethics should address the Alaska statute allowing governing bodies, such as the Assembly, to be exempt from the conflict of interest restrictions placed on other bodies, period.
Okay.
Then the second sentence would be, in the same paragraph, would be, any amendment to the Code of Ethics should be limited to those actions where most or all of the Assembly members face a similar conflict.
Here.
Is that,
Yeah.
all I did was try
that's
to
fine.
rephrase
Yeah.
it? Okay.
That's good.
Did you get that, D?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we're crossing off the with the understanding that such exemption granted to the Assembly. We're
Well, I
crossing
don't
it
think we
off.
need that because we're making these two separate sentences.
Okay.
Okay, so the Code of Ethics should address the Alaska statute allowing governing bodies, such as the Assembly, to be exempt from the conflict of interest restrictions placed on other bodies, period. Any amendment to the Code of Ethics should be limited to those actions, blah, 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 blah. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's perfect, actually.
Okay. All right. So that's bullet number one then. Linda, does that
Yeah, the changes I had proposed was that, along the lines of, or was thinking of, not proposed, any amendment to the Code of Ethics, rather than address, should reflect the limits allowed by the Alaska statute.
Or how about should be consistent with?
Consistent.
Yeah, there you
okay.
go.
That's fine.
Yep.
So any amendment to the Code of Ethics should be consistent with the limits allowed by the Alaska statute.
So that's to be too wordy, should be consistent. I would just say, I would not put that extra words in. I would say with Alaska statute. Do you think
So-
with the limits is helpful, you guys? I mean, in terms of reading?
Well, to me, allowed by would, in the statute allows what it allows, so I don't know that we need, a gut feeling.
Well, our recommendation is we want them to limit this to, we want them to limit amendments to the conflict of interest in the code to only those actions where most of the assembly members, most or all, face a similar conflict. So I think we want to, I do think that we want to tell them that they should limit it.
Well, that's in the second sentence.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, Linda, whether it helps, because you already have the word limit in the second sentence,
Oh,
whether
okay.
you want it in the first sentence as well.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking that if you have it in the first sentence, you don't need the second sentence.
Oh.
So it would just be any amendment to the Code of Ethics should be consistent with the limits allowed by the Alaska statute.
Okay. I vote, I'd like
Then
the
we have to put
second
in-
one better because
Okay.
it's more explanatory
Okay,
for the reader,
okay.
that's all.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on this bullet? How about the bullet was formerly number 1? The Code of Ethics shall be amended to allow the Assembly to act in cases in which all or a majority of its members face a similar conflict of interest. Ted's got a question.
Yeah, I think, when I was reading these, I think the second bullet in the current proposal as written should be number 2. Because that falls right underneath.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, Ted.
All right, so
Okay.
move that up. That still doesn't address the one I had, but I'm moving it up.
So the current proposal, as written, goes too far in exempting. My only, it's funny, now that we've reorganized it, in some way, that answers my concern about the specific provision, because now it becomes obvious what the provision is that we're objecting to, which is, it's the exempting the assembly. So I don't know that we need to do any more specific writing on that.
No, I think it's.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's my recommendation. I think that the third bullet as rewritten should be number 1. The current second bullet should remain number 2.
Lisa, do we have that?
The current first bullet should be number 3. And then 4 and 5 should stay as is.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think all the rest of the bullets are fairly clear.
Yeah.
Maybe what we could do is add okay, so the first 3 are now in reverse order, is that right? So under 2, the current proposal as written goes too far. Maybe we should refer to the
AS code?
No, refer to the proposed, I don't know what the proper designation is, but the proposed 115.035B1, just so that they know exactly what we're looking at when we say other than an assembly member. Right? Because that's what really stuck in our craw,
Yeah.
right? Was B1 particularly.
Can you say those numbers again, David?
Yeah, so again, this is under the proposed, right?
Right,
But it's
proposed.
1.15.035
Mhm.
B1. That's what really, I think, among all the other things, I think this is what really was the one that we objected to, which is the elected officials, other than an assembly member, may not participate in any official actions. What we're saying is, right, that this is the one that I thought maybe we can point to it directly, as opposed to referring to it
Obliquely.
obliquely. Because we want to make sure that they understand what we're saying, and we're doing it in summary fashion.
A lot of times when they make amendments at the assembly meetings, they refer to the line numbers. Would that
Okay.
be appropriate for
Yes.
this, Steve?
So would that be line number
Yeah.
30?
Mhm.
So that, exactly, that's my point. I want to make sure that they know exactly what we're looking at when you're saying it's too broad.
Yeah.
Line 30 on page 2 of 5.
Yes. Yes, and I'd even, I'm a lawyer and I tend to put too much stuff in. I'd even call it 1.15035.
Oh, I was gonna do that, yeah.
Okay,
So,
And then you could even say, B1.
yeah.
I don't think we need to quote it though.
No,
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 don't
no,
hold
because
it.
that'll confuse the hell out of
Absolutely,
it.
no,
No.
just indicate either line number or
Yeah.
B1.
that's right. Because that's
The whole
what I think
paragraph.
that's what really got us.
Or you could say,
Um,
line number such and such to such and such, so they know that it's the whole paragraph that we're,
Right.
not just one line.
Because I agree with the reasoning that we reached last time, which is if they're going to allow that, then it kind of, then there's really no reason for all these little subsections later because they're going to be allowed to do it anyway.
Right.
So that's the one provision I think that we zeroed in on as a board. Is that fair?
I say, but I think you should say B1
Yes.
rather than line item because
Right.
they
Well,
might
that's
just.
Well,
because,
If you don't care, I'm gonna do it all, that's how we
Yes.
do it
Both.
in minutes, and
Do
that's how.
both.
Okay.
Yeah,
in the
Right.
meeting.
Yeah.
Belts and suspenders.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
So does that help? That was the one I thought that would help clarify. So that's bullet number 2 now. Is that, well, it's still bullet number 2, but is that right? Okay, good. So
So-
then, are we on to 3 now?
we're done with 3. We
We
move
did?
on. Well, no, the, no
Three is
one,
the next,
Is it your-
first bullet.
Yes,
Right,
now the code of
action-
ethics, nobody-
Some of the action cases which,
And then
oh,
the
we
other
did that. Okay.
okay.
We
So
did
the
too.
next to the last one, the process of assessing such conflicts should include some consideration of the public importance of the issue at hand.
Yes.
And that's kind of a open-ended thing, but that was something that they had specifically in the provision.
Well, I think that might be fair because what we're also saying, I think this is what I'm inferring, is that that's their job to come up with the language. If they want us to review the language, it's not our position to draft the language for them.
Oh, no, I agree.
And especially the
Well,
public
that's-
consideration, because I agree with Dee.
Yeah.
I agree with Dee that's different from the other exceptions in the code, and that is something that really should fall under their purview. Because, I mean, we're not here to assess public importance. I think that's their job.
Right. And when this had the public importance as one of the factors.
Right.
And I think there was a pretty healthy debate that maybe it
Yes.
shouldn't be one of the factors, it's something
Should be
else.
separate.
But then let the assembly, maybe Julia would be the one rewriting this, let her figure out then
Yes.
where to put that in.
Right.
But
In
this
fact-
board recognizes the importance of that factor somewhere in the analysis.
You know, what we might even add is a sentence, something like that, that our consideration of that particular factor might be better placed in its own section or something, or somewhere other than a factor. Because I don't think this is the right place for it. Because it's not
Yeah.
something that we.
I think it would be hard to give them that
That's right.
flow. I mean,
Okay.
Julia sat here too and listened to most of that
Okay.
conversation, and she was the one that was sort of opinionated about whether or not that should be a factor.
What did she think?
I can't remember.
Because I just assumed it not be a factor.
Well, I think she wanted to remove it. I think
Okay.
that she didn't think it should be part of. Oh, I know why. She didn't want it as part of the D
Yes.
because she didn't want that to be a consideration in every conflict of
exactly.
interest analysis. That it should only be in certain special cases.
Should we say something to that effect, or should we just leave it to Julia?
Or should we say, in certain special cases, as you?
Well, maybe you could say when members add this, the process of assessing such conflicts should include some consideration of the public importance of the issue at hand
When?
members face a similar conflict of interest.
Yes.
I don't know if that helps, to tell you the truth. I
Yeah.
think the drafter, i.e. Julia,
Yeah. I
can
think
come up
it's-
with something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
we're in acceptance of that. Steve, do you have any
Yes.
more input?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, the last one.
Just one thing.
I'm sorry, Linda.
In this, we use the phrase public importance in the bullet, and
Should we
in the
refer to
proposed
that?
draft, they say public benefit.
Ah.
Do we want to conform to the wording of the draft, or is importance and benefit close enough that we don't
I,
want to care?
I think public
Well-
importance includes benefits.
Well, also,
Right, but it's also maybe a little bit broader, because when
I
you think
know.
about public importance, that also, in my mind, suggests a matter of, some things require quick reaction, some things could go more slowly, and benefit is more,
That's a subjective call. I don't think, I don't,
I like the importance.
well,
public importance.
maybe what we could
That-
do is add a
maybe-
reference to this in here too, in the same way we did under bullet point number 2. Just so they know what we're pointing at, and they can pick their own word.
Yeah.
but do we want to, if we're gonna point out,
I know, you want to make sure it's consistent so that we're not
Well, I'm
well,
sorry.
and I don't want them to misinterpret us saying that,
Right.
well, therefore, if we point out D6, that we think it has to stay in D6.
No, that's right.
I think the reason public importance, and I'm not sure whether I put the word importance in or Terry did, I think Terry did, is because there was some other larger
Yes.
debate about the word benefit.
I know,
Mhm.
that's right.
And so I think it was an avoidance of that larger debate.
I wrote down that you were debating between using benefit and actually going to duty, to
Right.
be more specific, because it was too broad.
Right.
Well,
To me, if I could say, when you use the word benefit, you're including everybody. If you use the word importance, it may be for South Edition. It may be something like that. It wouldn't be a benefit for everybody in the whole municipality. But it's very important to this particular one, section or whatever. You know, I just think it's, you get more of a handle on it than if they, you know, you can argue, you know, that's not a benefit. But it could be an importance. And I think the phrase importance is all inclusive.
Okay.
Well, and just for one more point for you to consider, the person that read this, that the criticism of this section here was that they felt that it was broad enough that anybody could introduce something of importance,
Right.
and it could be just anything,
It's too, yeah.
Right.
you know.
Well, that's why we were debating whether it should belong in an exception down here. You know, it needs to be tied to only those circumstances where they all held the same conflict, right? And that's why it belonged in a different section. That was my recollection. And that made sense to me. Do we?
So what would you put as a sub
Right.
bullet of 1?
well, can we put,
Or, yeah.
Some clarification in that. Process of assessing such conflicts. Okay, so I guess it's, what do we mean by such conflicts? Your reference.
I think we mean those conflicts where most or all are conflicted out.
Right, which is, I think what this reference, such conflicts, is too.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Just put
assessing,
in parentheses after that.
You want to put,
Such conflicts, parentheses, where most or all assembly members
Yes,
are
that's a
conflicted
good
out,
idea.
end of parentheses.
or maybe just a comment. Yeah.
okay,
But I agree. That would help clarify.
well, the other thing besides that parens, that I had a different parens, but I think they could go together. That parens, and I'm letting Lisa quick write it down because now I missed that
Yeah.
one. But something about, and not a factor in
Yes,
1.15.035D.
I agree with that.
That's what you really want to say.
That's-
It's not
that's what
part
I
of
wanna
your
say.
normal
Yeah.
substantial
Yeah.
financial
I agree.
interests. Okay.
Yeah. Lisa, did you get that?
Yes, I
Are you
did
getting
get it.
all of
Because
it?
I
I'm getting
didn't get
it.
it.
I'm
I'm
getting
glad
it.
you are. That's good.
Okay, and so Lisa, that would be the 1.15.035 D6,
Yes.
and that's line 41,
Good.
page 3 of 5.
Good. Are you okay with that, Keith?
yes.
Good enough?
I like the way it's coming together a little sharper.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I don't have any trouble with the main document, but I also can understand, especially when you're working with people who are dealing with law, we have to be able to narrow it. We have to tie it down.
Yeah, but, you know, and you can debate this on and make a change here, make a change there. You know, at some point, you gotta stop.
Right, and so that's why I was willing, if I hear no objection, I want to go to the last point.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Steve, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay. We could actually probably roll the last bullet into the one we just finished.
Well, let me read
Well,
it first.
Well,
I like bullets.
We don't want them too long.
Okay, well, I
I
guess
like-
what I'm saying though is we're saying they both deal with the process of assessing the conflict.
Right.
yeah.
Let's see,
So-
the process of assessing such conflicts or the Assembly's effort to mitigate.
So again, we need to clarify such conflicts,
To seek it out.
just like we did in the previous bullet.
Well, I'm wondering maybe we want to
You're
use the
already-
same exact wording here.
Well, you're number 5.
Well,
you're already
Why don't we eliminate?
you're already speaking
Yeah.
to that
Yeah.
to the other one because it says the process of assessing such conflicts. So you already
How about eliminate the first, just start the sentence with the Assembly's effort to mitigate or manage. See, we're saying these conflicts, such conflicts, it's the same conflict. The Assembly's effort to mitigate or manage those conflicts should require the Assembly to seek out an advisory opinion.
But
right.
Or
Yeah.
it kind of assumes, this last bullet kind of assumes, because you're not going to get to the last bullet unless the assembly
Yeah.
determines it's a matter of public importance. So
That's
then
right.
it kind of becomes, if the assembly determines it is a matter of sufficient public importance, the next step in the process should be.
Well, this reflected the debate between Terry and I, where in which I think there was no consensus, where he, and his opinion shows that as well, he wanted the ethics board to be inserted in the minute there was a bunch of, a majority of people had conflicts, that the ethics board came in there. And I kept saying, no, they need to weigh their own conflicts,
Yeah.
they need to figure out public importance. And if we wanted to get inserted back in, it would be at the other end of the process in terms of mitigation or how they handled the conflict of interest. And I wasn't even sure, but I personally not that sure that we should be watchdogging that effort or the ethics board. But Terry was quite adamant at the front end of the process. So that's why this is one where I did change it, because he had simply something about the process
I
of
see.
assessing such conflicts should require the assembly to seek out an advisory. I added, or the assembly's effort to mitigate or manage those
I
conflicts.
see.
But that's
So
very
I added the
interesting.
tail end.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking is, for example, in this whole case, if the assembly had determined that changing the date of the elections was not sufficiently important to the public to change the conflict of interest, it might never have come to
Yeah, it
this
might have been
board.
over.
That's
And-
right.
And they might have decided on their own, it's not sufficient for the public, we don't need to bother the ethics board with this, we're self-governing.
But that's exactly right, and that, I think as it should be. The issue is, though, if they do something, where does the ethics board come in? And again, this just reflected a very big debate and a non-consensus item. One thing I might propose is, do we just take that out at this point in time?
Well,
No, I don't think it should be taken.
yeah, no, there was
No?
the consensus of the board to have I think it was to have the Board of Ethics involved in the process somehow.
Right.
Which also, to me, is a nice balancing for our recommendation that they give themselves more power to handle conflicts of interest.
Yeah, so I think maybe what we could do is just take out that first part, and I think, like David suggested, start it with the assembly's effort. We don't necessarily need them to seek out an advisory opinion as they're assessing the conflicts. But I think we're more concerned with the assembly seeking out an advisory opinion in their efforts to mitigate or manage those conflicts as they move forward in the process.
You know, and I agree. And I think that we have to keep in mind that the Assembly has chosen to seek out the opinion of the Ethics Board already because they feel as though it's in their best interest to do so. And there's no reason to think that they won't continue to do that in the future. I think that if they start acting in a way that, what am I trying to say? That's contrary to the essential essence of the code, that they're going to have their own.
Right.
We're not necessarily the check and balance for them, right? They come to us for an opinion, and they've been doing that, and I think they will continue to do that. But if it,
I think what we could do here is remove that word should
Mm.
and put the word may or something like that. Give them the option. And nowhere in the code does it give the assembly the option to seek out
Mhm.
any advisory from the ethics board. But if we put this in and took out the word should require and put the word may, not require, should require, that's makes it, that they should do it. Where let them know somewhere in the code where, it's their option to.
well,
But
then we
by
should.
not doing so, don't they do that at their own peril?
Yes.
By
But then if that's the case, we should eliminate the word require,
Right, yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
Change it to allow.
to allow or something.
Allow, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something, take out the require and the should and this.
The
and put
difficult-
it in-
I agree.
Yeah.
The difficulty with that is it's too bad Terry's not here because that was his very strong contention.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we
Because
should.
that's not what he meant. I mean,
No, but we should, that still says that, hey, they got the option to come
Yeah.
and bring it to us, but it's not saying that it requires them to do it.
go ahead. Dee.
Ted, I think that there is a part of the code section that already says that we operate, the assembly can seek our advice. And that's in fact what this whole thing is, because
Right.
quite a few assembly members said, and why is the ethics board telling us how to write our code? I mean, there was that sentiment anyway,
Mhm.
well, because you referred it, and because there is an advisory component. So that's already in the code, there is an advisory component. And so I'm not sure saying, to me, that would render this sort of superfluous,
Oh,
that
the whole
we don't
paragraph.
need it, yeah. But the other thing in terms of Terry's position is, again, I see this going to a rewrite by, that they assign it to someone to rewrite, and we'll still have input.
Right.
And
Right.
anybody can always request an opinion or file a notice of violation. It's just whether Terry wanted to make it sort of ensure a systemic review by the ethics board. I mean,
Right.
he feels so strongly against the whole procedure in many ways. I mean,
Right.
he's the one that really had a hard time seeing when this would be appropriate.
Well, that's why I say, I think it should be there, but take some of them strong words out. Still, if we remove it altogether, that,
Mhm. I think we should leave it should require because they're going to do it. We're going to be. I agree with Dee. We're going to be involved in the process of rewriting this thing.
Okay.
I think that I understand what you're saying,
Mhm.
but I think that this tries to capture what Terry was saying,
Mhm.
at least reflect. But ultimately, it's not going to make any difference because we're going to be included hopefully in the rewrite process, where he's going to have plenty of opportunity to voice his opinion on what he thinks should happen, and we can have this debate rage again.
Okay, so just. go
I
ahead,
was just
Dee.
going to say, should require, because there I
should
am,
require.
maybe may require the assembly to seek out. Again, I don't think we
Yeah.
are their checks or balance, and
Right.
the ethics board should be inserting themselves like that.
Should require is pretty strong language.
Yeah,
Um,
may require the assembly to seek out. So just leave it as a possibility that we're
Right,
exactly.
considering that.
Ideally would require.
Right.
May require, yeah, and just leave it as a may.
In your
at this
best
point.
interest, this should require.
Yeah.
But we are
It's
agreed
for review.
that the process, the first part of that, all the way to the word "or" is gone. The
I
process of
was, that was
assessing
my
this
just to
conflict.
cut out some words.
Mm.
That's all.
Yeah.
Because we say such conflicts twice in the same sentence, and I think that it says essentially the same thing. But I'm not trying to.
Okay, so now the sentence would read: the Assembly's effort to mitigate or manage those conflicts may require the Assembly to seek out an advisory opinion from the Board of Ethics.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I
Gary's
actually
not
like
going to
it.
be happy with that, but he's not here. So,
Here.
are you okay with that, Steve?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I make
Okay.
a motion,
I got one thing to say before
Yeah.
we're done.
No, that's fine.
Is I will not be attending tonight upon advice,
Advice of counsel.
well, and other members of the board. So this is going to have to go on its own. My gut feeling is they're going to look at this and they're going to table.
they're
or-
going to table it,
Yeah.
either table it or postpone
Yeah.
So no sense in going and playing with my iPad while the meeting goes on.
Well, I think that the point I was that I would my thought would be that the board should act as a unit, and that your feeling of responsibility to make an effort to repair these things only puts you in a position of having to represent the board under the questioning of, I mean, they call on you not
Well-
because you asked to be called on, but because you're there, and as a result, you're asked questions about things that really belong before the board. It's not your fault. It's
Well,
just
the
that
good
it makes
news
it
is
easier because
when-
you don't need to be there.
When I did testify at the last meeting, and that was on the teacher, the
Gifts.
gift situation, that was something we asked for.
Yeah.
And then we spoke in favor, all they did
Yeah.
was make in favor of it.
Right.
And then any questions, except for one of them, went to Dee.
Right.
One of the questions was, well, why are we doing it? Because the teachers asked for it, and I wasn't
Right.
as concerned about the date as we were about get it done. And then they asked some technical questions. That I forget
Travel
what it was.
accommodations,
Yeah.
weren't we concerned with
I
that?
still feel like we should be addressed as a board, and that they should come to us for things, and we respond in kind. I don't know that I just don't see our role as the chair testifying before them normally without an exception.
Well, I think that the difference too, though, that gift thing had been vetted. We had a
Yes.
true consensus. It was not controversial. This is absolutely
Yes.
controversial, and it's almost like there's almost no way not
Right.
to get into trouble.
Oh, well, yeah, I was not looking forward
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
So it's been moved to adjourn?
I agree. I think this is
To
this
go with
clarifies
this, is
our
somebody
position.
going to present this to the assembly tonight?
Lisa's just going to
You're
bring
gonna
it.
type
It'll
that
get-
up and
yeah,
do it.
yeah.
Lisa's gonna go make the edits.
I trust the edits. I don't need to say it.
Yes.
I'm gonna take yours, and I'm gonna take yours, and it'll be right.
Mine?
Didn't you do some chicken scratching over there?
I did, but I gave up when I saw that you started.
It's
doing it.
okay, just in case.
You're welcome to have it. Yes.
I'll be glad to look at it.
Okay, are we adjourned?
And it's just gonna
we had
be
a,
same
we had a
number.
motion,
to
they had
you.
a second, we're adjourned.
We're adjourned.
All right, see you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
Is that all?